Hey guys, I'm Jacqueline. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm finally doing my yearly wrap-up, and I'm gonna share my favorite books I read in 2020, specifically the top 20 of 2020, and then a few honorable mentions because there were just a lot of good books I read. I gotta shout them out. First, we have the honorable mentions. These were books that were also fantastic, but like there's so many that I loved. So I made a little honorable mentions section to shout out just a few more that were really great. And by the way, these are like top 20 plus extras out of like, I think I read 400 last year. So these are like the cream of the crop. I'm giving you the best. Only the best. Okay, so my honorable mentions, the first one is The Scarlet Letters. It's by Jenny Nordbak. Jenny is one of the hosts of the Wicked Wallflowers Club, and this is her a memoir of like her year as a dominatrix in LA. I don't read a lot of nonfiction. I like know and love Jenny, but I hadn't gotten around to reading her book, and then my sister was like, you have to read this book. And I like finished it at like 2 a.m. and I was like tearing up and like, you know, having an existential crisis, and I texted Jenny and I was like, you're amazing, this is incredible. So obviously it's like I have only good things to say about it. Like I remember as I was reading it, I was like, she needs to write fiction, because like even just like reading her memoir, she had such a great sense of like narrative arc and like how to craft this story even though it's like her own in a way that like really follows. I loved her voice and she's just so great. Another one was Teach Me by Olivia Dade. I feel like most people have read it at this point. It's just, oh, it's so incredible. The thing that I really loved about it is like, I feel like Rose isn't like a typical heroine and that she's like a little like less expressive. She's a little more closed off. But like I have a couple of really close friends who are kind of like that. Anytime I get to see like people like them on page, it just makes me really happy. I love Dade's writing. It's like super emotional and angsty, which I love. And it's just sweet and like two real human people falling in love. And I was kind of blown away. I think it was the first book by Dade that I read, and then I binged the rest of her books this year. I also really liked Whiteout by Adriana Anders. I don't read a lot of suspense, but I wanted to give, actually I read that one for my book club, and it was the first romantic suspense I've read, and it super worked for me because it was like wild. It was kind of like this bonkers premise of like the hero and heroine trying to trek across Antarctica to like save like sort of to save their lives, but also to like let people know that there was this virus that was coming. It was this whole ordeal. And it was like super suspenseful, but I didn't feel like anxious the whole time, which is the way to go. The other one I want to shout out that like, I mean, it's so hard. I wish I should have probably just done a list of 25, but this is essentially that. But the other one is Take a Hint, Dani Brown. It's incredible. I love Talia's writing. She's so funny. It's always hot. And I feel like often it's a question of like, there's usually like the hero or the heroine that I like the most in a book, but this one, like Dani and Zaf are so strong. They're so kind of like unique. The intro is so incredible. Like I think it's something about like she was doing a spell and she had honey on her tit, and like incredible. And then like Zaf is like such a sweet like cinnamon roll of a hero. He listens to romance audiobooks. It's incredible, and the grand gesture at the end is just like swoon worthy. Okay, so that's the end of my honorable mentions. On to the top 20. The first is Syncopation by Anna Zabo. It is a rock star romance. The band Twisted Wishes loses their drummer and they need a new drummer, and Ray is the front man, and the guy who applies to be their drummer is this guy Xavier, who Ray went to high school with, and there was always this kind of tension, but nothing happened. And he's the only drummer who's like good enough, so he joins the band, and then they start touring, and there's this whole tension between Ray and Xavier that's fantastic. I hadn't read a rock star in a while, so that was like hit the spot for me. But I think what really I loved in this is Xavier is aromantic, and I hadn't read an aromantic lead before, and I think like Sarah McLellan always says like happy everyone after is what HEA means, but I think like I hadn't seen it before, and it was really cool to see like no, like HEA does mean like this is for everyone, no matter who you are, like there's HEA for you. And so that was really powerful. I loved like seeing Ray and Xavier navigate like what a relationship would mean for the two of them and how they could do it in a way that was like expressing the care and the things they feel for their partner and like true to who their identity and who they are. So I love that one. It's pretty kinky too, which is incredible. So definitely recommend that one. Number 19 is A Matter of Disagreement, also MM. This is by Ottoman, and I read it after it was wrecked on Fated Mates podcast. It is magical historical AU, and it's enemies to lovers because they stand on two opposite sides of like essentially like a magical theory debate, and like they believe like two different things about this particular implementation of magic. And so that like they have all this tension where like this is how we should be using it, no, this is how we should be using it, and it just kind of like bubbles up into something delicious. And one of the heroes is trans, and so is the author, so it's own voices. And it was so, I love enemies to lovers. I'm a sucker for enemies to lovers. I also love historical stuff. Like I studied fashion. I did like a huge part of my studies on historical fashion, and so like there's just like all of these things that I love in one piece, and it was so well done. Like they're magical scholars. What else could you ask for? My number 19, also historical magical AU, also MM. It is the Magpie Lord. And the thing that I loved this is like I came to romance from like paranormal, fantasy, YA, and a little bit of historical, but mostly the magic. And so I have a very soft spot in my heart for paranormal, but I tend to be really picky. And I think I had just gotten off of like, I had read Cressley Cole, and then I had like tried a couple other authors. It was like, ugh, nothing is giving me this PNR dream that I'm looking for. And then I read The Magpie Lord. I binged the rest of the series. It's phenomenal. The two leads, it's very much like the grumpy and the sunshine one, except for it's more like the grumpy one and then the like sarcastic, witty, like jokey one. And I love also like Lord Crane, who's one of the heroes, is kind of a rake and like dresses really well, and I was living for the descriptions of like his clothes. There's also like a mystery, it's a murder mystery, it's a 3-book series, and this is the first one. But yeah, it was just a ride of a novel, and I loved it. Number 17 is The Naughty List by Ellie Mae MacGregor. I've been following Ellie on Instagram as Bisexual Book Nerd for like a year-ish, and she's awesome. And she just published her first book. It's everything that I wanted. It was like right around the holidays. It's like hot Santa dream. It was just so good. The heroine reads a Katie Roberts book at the beginning, so like we have that romance rep on page. I know I already talked about it, so I don't want to go too in depth, but just to reiterate everything that I love, The Naughty List is great. Ellie, whenever you have time or inclination to write more books, I'm here for you. I'm here. I'm ready. Number 16 is Hes Come, Undone. It's an anthology with a couple different authors. There were a few anthologies that came out this year. All were phenomenal. But this one really stuck out to me because I feel like, I mean, besides before this year, I feel like I would read an anthology and like only like 1 or 2 of the stories. I would read it for like a specific author, and that would be kind of where I left it. And then 3 anthologies came out from all of my favorite authors this year, and like they were all phenomenal. But I think this one just like gutted me a little bit more, and that's why I wanted to shout this one out. And I think also most of the authors are like now releasing those out separately, which is kind of fun. I also love that it's structured around the idea of like all of these are heroes that come undone. I love a hero that comes undone because he loves someone so much. So that super worked for me. Yeah, they're all incredible. And the authors on that one are Emma Barry, Adriana Herrera, Ruby Lang, Kat Sebastian, and Olivia Dade. And it's incredible. Number 15 is Harbor by Rebekah Weatherspoon. This one was wild. It is MMF. And there's like, at the beginning, the heroine and the heroes are with other people. And her fiance is cheating on their partner. And they're murdered. And so the book picks up where they're at the funeral and they're both kind of like, or all three of them are kind of like grieving and like figuring out like how to move on and kind of processing, but they kind of meet because it's like this super weird circumstance. And then through that kind of like grieving process, they end up, I think, like there's chemistry there, but there's like period, which I also really like. There's a period where they're like, I can't just like hook up with someone right after like my partner dies. This is super weird. That would be weird. So they meet, there's tension, they chill, gotta heal from the trauma. And then they end up hooking up, and like it's mostly on I think Shaw's house in Cape Cod. It's very hot, real kinky. There's sex on the beach, there's sex on a boat. Like, it's so fun. It's just like pure watermelon sugar high. So yeah, I loved that one. It's so good. My number 14 is Bet Me by Jenny Cruzy. I've been meaning to read this since they talked about it on Fated Mates, because it's enemies to lovers, which is my kink, always. I already told you guys about this. I'm not gonna rehash the plot of Bet Me because I told you about it, but it's just perfect. I don't think I actually recapped at the end of the book. Everything about this book worked for me. It's so funny. The hero and the heroine have great tension and like they're into each other, but also they fight all the time. And then, so it's like fight, fight, fight. Oh, and now I'm feeding you donuts. Whoops, are we kissing now? What? Yeah, God, the chemistry is incredible. The friend groups are so perfect. Like there's a character who literally was Joey, and like they're all kind of whole. Like every friend like is doing something in the narrative, and like there's specific things that they're there for, but they don't feel like they're not plot moppets. It's just like they're whole people, and like these hero and this heroine, they have friends, and their friends are part of their lives, and that affects like the ways that they operate in space. Anyways, I'm going off. Bet Me is incredible. It's just like everything that I love about movies from the 90s is in this book. Like, immaculate. 13 is Party Favors by Erin McLellan. And this one, I almost said Bottle Rocket, because that one was also so good. Honestly, the whole series is incredible. But the reason I picked Party Favors is because like there was so much hype around The Happiest Season, and I love Kristen Stewart, and I was like living for this fantasy when I heard about it. And then the movie came out and it was just like not what I wanted. And then I read Party Favors, and like it was everything I wanted. It was everything I wanted from Happiest Season. Amanda and Ren meet online because one of them's tweeting about like a vintage lingerie, and they've been online friends for years. And Ren invites Amanda to come celebrate the new year with her friends at this resort. And so they get there, and there's only one bed in the hotel room, and they're just like great friends, and they kind of realize like, I might be into this. And like there's no like emotional manipulation, there's no like leaving your partner like in the middle of the night to go hang out with your ex. It's just like two gals falling in love, doing some Mariah Carey karaoke, and it was great. It's just everything that I wanted Happiest Season to be. So just if you were disappointed like me, just read Party Favors. My number 12 is The Prince of Broadway by Joanna Shupe. It's just maybe a perfect historical romance. The hero, I mean, I feel like everyone's read it, and like everyone knows, fuck yeah, Florence, yes, B, you're a gem. But heroine wants to run a gambling hell, gaming hell, gambling den, one of the two, same thing, for women. And so she goes to the guy who runs the best gaming hell and is like, you're gonna teach me some shit. And he's like, what? And then she's like, yeah, you are. And he's like, oh, you're kind of hot. Okay. I think they bang on a pool table. There's a really great mutual masturbation scene. It's just fantastic. And like, I think right at the beginning, she's like, I'm never gonna get married. And then she doesn't. And they're happy. And it's great. Yeah, just gotta read it if you haven't read it already. What are you doing? Honestly, just pause video, read it now. Okay, now that you've read it. The next book, and this is my number 11, is Hold Me by Courtney Milan. And I just love this book. Courtney's writing is like always so beautiful and so precise, and it's enemies to lovers. I'm on my bullshit as always. The hero and the heroine meet. He writes her off like, oh, you're just a hot piece, like you don't know things, like you're not smart. And she's like, bitch, what are you talking about? Because she's brilliant. She's just, I think she's doing her undergrad, because I can't, but she's just doing her undergrad and he's like a grad student. It's her brother's best friend. So then they have this whole enemies thing. But meanwhile, little do they know that much like in You've Got Mail, they've been messaging. They're internet friends. And like they're kind of falling in love on the internet, but they hate each other in real life. And Maria, I think, tells him at one point about like a pair of shoes that she really likes as the internet friend. And then Jay sees her in the shoes and is like, this is my friend, this is my internet friend, but it's the person I hate. And it's phenomenal. Also, Jay is bisexual and Maria is trans, so it's got great rep. It's funny, it's deeply emotional, incredible, immaculate. The flavor. Top 10, babies. We've reached it. Okay. Also, this is the second time I've done this video because the first time was like something was wrong with the video and it took like twice as long, so I'm very proud of myself. You're not gonna get another hour-long video from me for a while. Top 10, number 10 is The Beast of Blackmoor by Milla. I know what you're thinking. Jacqueline, you love fantasy, you love sci-fi, you love PNR. Why did you not pick Heart of Blood and Ashes? I'll tell you what, I loved Heart of Blood and Ashes, but The Beast of Blackmoor was like all of the things I loved about Heart of Blood and Ashes, more focused on the romance. And I think that's why I liked it, because it was just like pure people falling in love, and it was so good. So the heroine of this one is, I believe she's a princess, and she's a devotee of Milla, who's the moon goddess. And she's like, I've been sent on a mission by my goddess. I'm gonna free the people of this particular land, a region, and slay the Beast of Blackmoor. And what she doesn't know is there's like a literal beast, but there's also a man who's called the Beast of Blackmoor. And he has a lot of trauma. He lost his family, he's lost his home, and he's kind of wandering now. And so what she doesn't know is not only is she going to save the land, but she's gonna save the beast. I love a massive broody hero. I love a story of redemption, and he like doesn't really believe that gods are real, and he like doesn't, he's kind of like defeated and like sad, which is fair. And she's like very hopeful, and so it's kind of like how like faith plays a role in the book is really interesting. And like the dark moment of this book, I listened in audio. I was listening in audio, like I was listening at like 1 a.m. in the morning, and the dark moment hit, and I was like sobbing in my room at 1 a.m. because it's like so it's so painful and so good, because the dark moment is like so dark that like when they get their HEA, it's absolutely incredible. Milla, man, what a queen. My number 9 is Like Lovers Do by Tracy Livesey. I think it's one of the best representations I've read of like a working woman, because we get a really good view of like what it's like to be a doctor. Nick is like so incredible, but it's like not super focused on work. It's friends to lovers, which I normally don't love, but this one like super worked for me. It's fake relationship. It's like a kind of a vacation romance. But Nick and Ben are like friends. She lives in like the lower apartment of his house. He's always kind of been into her, but was like, I don't want to ruin the friendship. I think she texts him like a picture of her boobs at one point when she's drunk on accident, and he's like, wait, no, I do like her. And then so when his ex like hijacks her way onto his like friend's weekend getaway, he's like, Nick, will you please pretend to be my girlfriend? And you know how that goes. So that was incredible. My number 8 is Emerald Blaze by Ilona Andrews. I am an Ilona Andrews stan. Ilona? Whatever. I'm a stan. They're incredible. I love the Hidden Legacy series, and I liked Sapphire Flames, but like I feel like they really stuck the landing with the couple in this book. Like I really like they fully landed here, and it like it's part of the same series, but by Emerald Blaze, like they feel like it's their own space, it's their own thing, and the hero's journey in this 2-book series, the last book's coming out soon, is so good. I really loved it. He's an Italian, is he a duke? Count? He's just Italian and entitled, much like Eloisa James's husband, that lucky bitch. Yeah, it was just so good. I loved Catalina as a hero, and I feel like she came into her own in this book. And so, yeah, it just made me so happy to read this book. I love the world building. If you haven't read Hidden Legacy yet, get on it. It's incredible. I mean, number 7 is American Love Story by Adriana Herrera. Love Adriana's books because I feel like there are often authors will shy away from writing about like really contemporary things, like contemporary issues, because A, they're like, I don't want to date the book, and B, it's hard. But Adriana is like unafraid to write about real issues. And I think it's funny, I don't want to go up too much, but like that whole idea of like writing being a tool, much like Alexander Hamilton, writing is a tool where we can process, like write our way, not exactly write our way out to that extent. We're not all Lin-Manuel, but that idea of like writing as a way to process and also dialogue about contemporary issues, and like much like authors were with the really problematic shit that authors were writing in the 90s, like they were writing out of the reflection of the traumas and the issues that they're dealing with in society. And this book is fucking doing the same thing. And I mean, Adriana writes about like a lot of like really important like issues with like race and sexuality, and like all of her books are so like, all of her books do that, but I feel like this book was so well timed for when I read it, and so powerful. And like not only from like that kind of point of view, but the other thing is I love when a book makes me wonder like how in the hell are these two people actually gonna make a life together, because the space between them is so great. And I feel like with this one, like it's often really easy to do in like paranormal or sometimes historical, but I don't always like see that as much in contemporaries, and this one like totally did, because Easton is a DA assistant, I believe, and Patrice is a black man, and advocating actively, talking out about injustice, and it really like it's a genuine question, like how could these two people be together? And Adriana writes their story so well. It is like so it's just so good, and it's so like relevant. Okay, I'm just babbling now. Go read American Love Story if you have not yet read it. It's so good. Number 6 on my list is The Rakess by Scarlett Peckham. I loved this book. I loved the like kind of spin on like the what if the heroine's the rake. I thought that Sarah was such a compelling character. I really liked how it kind of talked about different processes of trauma and different processes of recovery, because she had like that history of it's not really like abuse or assault, but like she had this partner who like lied to her and used her and then threw her away and like soiled her good name. And so she had like all this trauma attached to that, and then she was kind of coping with it with like alcohol, and like the way that she kind of processes those two things and like has to heal from that was really fascinating. It's so fucking sexy. It's so sexy. The hero is so delightful. This is actually the first book that I did a review for in the Wicked Wallflowers newsletter, so that was really fun. I just really liked this book. The cover is phenomenal. I can't wait. But also the Society of Sirens was incredible. All good things. Only good things to say. Top 5. This is where it gets dicey. And by dicey I mean I will be messy because I love these books so much. But my number 5 is Hate Crush by Angelina M. Lopez. So I read Lush Money, her debut, in the spring, and I was like utterly blown away. I loved Roxanne. I love a bad bitch heroine. I love a self-made heroine. Queen moves. Absolute queen moves. Actual literally queen moves, because she marries a prince. But I remember reading that and I was like, how the hell is Angelina gonna top this? Like I was kind of like worried, because I was like, ugh, this first book is so good. What are you gonna do? I did not need to worry. I did not need to worry, reader, because I loved Hate Crush so much. It's like the hero and the heroine meet when they're in their late teens, early 20s, I think early 20s. Immediately they're into each other, immediately they start hooking up, they have this really deep, passionate relationship, and then they're kind of torn apart. And he goes off to be a rock star and she goes back to being a princess. And then like 13 years later, he's kind of like at his like rock bottom, and he lets it slip when he's drunk to a reporter that the sexiest song that he ever written, and it's like the one song that everyone was like, who is this about? Like, we have to know. Like, for 13 years no one knew, and he actually lets it slip that it's about the princess of this country. And so the crowd goes, everyone goes wild, like the media is crazy, and so much so that it's like tempting to ruin the opening of her winery that's happening within the month. So they have this whole fake dating situation, but like right when he gets there, he's like, oh my god, this is our time to hook up, like we're gonna get back together. I always cared about her, but I just never did anything about it because I'm a chump. And she's like, here's a list of like, this is how we're going to interact, this is what you're allowed to say to me, this is what you're not allowed to say to me. And she's like such a bad bitch. I feel like what I loved about this one of the things obviously, is that like whenever I think of like old school romance, you can tell that one of her favorite authors is, I think, Kinsale and Medeiros are some of her favorites. You can tell because she has all of that like epic, like wild storytelling that's just like, yeah, this is an old school romance fan. It has all of this kind of like winding plots and like crazy things happening, but also like it's written in a modern time and it's written by a modern author. So like a lot of the things that can be really problematic about those old school books, it doesn't have. So it like, you get that kind of like bananas plot line and you don't have to worry about like really problematic things. There are a couple content warnings on this one. I would definitely check. I know I need to get better about talking about content warnings. I can think of them immediately in this one and actually the Raycast as well. And Beast of Blackmoor, I'm sure there are probably others. I think many of them are on my Goodreads, but also just double check to make sure that they won't be triggering for you. Anyways, I loved Hate Crush. It was so incredible. It is my number 5 for the year. Angelina, I cannot fucking wait for Roman's book. I need it now. Thank you. You're amazing. My number 4 is by Alexis Hall, and I'm gonna cheat on this one because it's boyfriend material / for real, because I read For Real this spring, and it's like, it's MM. One of them is like this older kind of jaded submissive, and the other is like, I think he's like 20, and he's like, I know I'm a dominant, but no one will take me seriously. I need to, like, I want to figure out who I am. It's an emotional roller coaster. It's such a ride, but it's also like achingly tender and so good. It's really kinky. There's a great scene with the lemon meringue pie, but I was so kind of blown away by this book, and I'd been hearing about it, so I knew it was gonna be incredible, but I was so blown away by it. It's just like raw and like emotional and real and gritty and so good. And then this summer I read Boyfriend Material, and it was like that same, like, I think Alexis Hall has a really like kind of witty, intellectual, but not like in an unreachable way, like in a kind of like smart, funny, clever tone as a writer. And so it was like those aspects, but like notched up for this like delightful rom-com that's fake dating. I feel like most people have read Boyfriend Material. It almost won the Goodreads Awards. It was one of those. And so, like, on the one hand, you have this like really sexy, really emotional, really gripping kind of story, and then on the other hand, like, super playful, super fun. I loved Luke's kind of self-deprecating nature. I totally relate to that. So yeah, they both were incredible. I can't pick one over the other. Had to say both. My number 3 is Nobody's Baby But Mine by SCP. I really haven't read a ton of her books. I feel like I heard something about her that's problematic. I read this book right before Fated Mates did their episode last spring, and besides just being a banana pants, old school, enemies to lovers, she thinks he's dumb and wants to get pregnant, so she sleeps with him without protection. Bad. It's bad, but at the time, they wouldn't be written out. Anyways, she sleeps with him, gets pregnant, he finds out, gets pissed, and he forces her to fly to his home in like South Carolina or something and live with him to take care of this baby because it's not going to be born out of wedlock. So besides being like a bonkers ride, this was the first book where I like read it, and like the things that like Sarah and Jen always talk about, like, this is the work this author is doing, or like I can see with this thread, this is what the author's saying, and like I read this book and I could see those things as I was reading, and then like listen to the audiobook or the podcast, and they were like, this is what she was doing, and like I was right, like I saw them, and it was so exciting for me, I feel like, as a reader, to kind of feel that I had like almost leveled up in a way, and like to be seeing the work that the author was doing with specific story threads, and like how yeah. So not only is it wild and delightful, but it was kind of a special moment for me as a reader. So I loved that. My number 2 is it's Love Lettering by Kate Claiborne. Oh god, it was so emotional. Like, the first 50 pages, the heroine has like so much anxiety and like sadness that I don't know if my sister's gone through the first, like, I think she paused and she hasn't picked it up yet because it was like, it's a lot, but it just speaks to how good of an author Kate Claiborne is, and like how incredible the story is. The hero is like or heroine is like a hand letterer, and the hero is someone who she like made invitations for a wedding, and she like hid a message that like, this is a mistake, and he finds out and he's like, what the hell, how did you know? And so she kind of talks to him, but then they kind of pick up this like funky friendship, and they end up hanging out, and it's just like deeply emotional and like really beautiful and like kind of perfectly timed for me. Like, I read this right as I was like in New York with my sister. Like, I wasn't moving to New York yet, but I was in New York with her, and I was gonna be moving within the next 6 months, and so it just like felt really timely, and it just gutted me emotionally. And the grovel at the end, oh my god, so good. So that's my number 2. Kate, you're incredible. I can't wait for your next book. So we've come to number 1. Are you ready, kids? My number 1 is also cheating because I picked 3. So my number 1 is Your Dad Will Do, The Beast, and Sacrifice by Katie Robert. And like, this really was the year of Katie Robert. I think I started reading her this spring. She was on the Wicked Wallflowers podcast. I heard about her Kinky Wicked Villains series. I was like, this is my shit, hello, let me read all of your books. And I did, obviously. And I don't know what to tell you. She just taps like right into my brain. She writes my id. I love everything about her books. I will read them forever. I will forever hype them. This is a stan account. Get used to it. I picked Your Dad Will Do because I think it's a perfect novella. It is short, it's super sexy, and like even in that, like every scene is moving forward the plot. Like there's so much work in every scene, and it just it works for me. I like it. And the other thing is like it felt like it was really fun to kind of follow her journey on Twitter as she was like, oh, is this like kind of a weird idea? And everyone was like, no, you should do it. And she's like, great, I'll do it in 6 freaking days. And she did. Like a queen. So that was rad. The other one is The Beast. I thought that Jasmine and Jafar would be my favorite book in the Wicked Villain series. And then she released this one and it was like so powerful. I think part of it is that like whatever book you like most in the series is partially gonna be tied to like your personal taste. But I think the other reason this one worked really well for me is that like there's so much backstory in the other books where you see like there's kind of some trauma, there's some beef between these 3 people, and like she sets it up really well. And in this book, like they really get into it, and there's like a lot of like stuff they kind of have to heal from. It's a second chance, it's a sex deal, it's just everything that I like. And then I also picked Sacrifice because it's like, oh, all the things that Katie Roberts does, it's hot, it's fun, it's sex positive and inclusive, and vampires, like, hello, sign me up. I will have 10 of these. Yeah, it was the year of Katie Robert, what can I say? So those were my top 20 reads. Are there any that, if there's some that you guys recognize that you also had on your list, I'd love to hear that, or if you think there's one that I really missed out on, feel free to shout it out and I will add it to my TBR. So yeah, thank you for watching. Have a great day, guys.